to finish. If you have anything that's finished, I'm gonna repeat this every time because some of you aren't doing it. I don't know if it's y'all, but put your finished pieces over there to be bisque fired. Your bisque pieces, glaze them, and put them over there to be glaze fired. I do 2 firings every weekend so far, except at the beginning. And all right, I believe I'm recording. Okay. All right, so we're here at UTRGV Ceramic Studio in Brownsville, and you're not going to be able to see my head, but I want you to see my hands. If you're looking at the recording, there are students in the classroom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate how to apply laser print decals. So I've got the paper here, which you can buy several different products. I lost the address to the one I used to buy, and it was slightly different than this. But if you look at the paper, it has a slick surface, and that's the side you print on. But some of the laser print decal paper that you can buy has a kind of tissue paper on top that has to be taken off before you use it. This doesn't. So this particular one is just keep it so they get messed up. But you create images, and what I'm doing is something for an exhibit that I was asked to do. I don't generally do kind of current event type stuff in my art, but I decided to go ahead and do something, take some of the drawings I've been doing late at night lately and turn them into decals. But you like format the images on a paper, get rid of the margins as much as possible. So unless you don't want to lose your image if you want it precise. So you got to have a little bit of a margin in there. So set your margins in a Word doc and turn everything into black and white, because laser jet ones only print contrast between light and dark, which it winds up being sepia tone, but it looks black and white to begin with. I think my printer is getting needs more ink, but because the ones I printed out, after I print them, you print them on this paper, you cut them out, and I try and do it on a relatively kind of flat. If it's too round, the curves will get in the way of applying it, so I'll have to cut little darts at the top, maybe, so that I can fit them. They will stretch a little bit, so I'm going to try that. But the first one I'm going to do is going to be easy, because it's going to be a round one on a bottle that I've flattened, and it's just a logo that I've used on my websites and stuff. I don't generally do this a lot, like a gimmicky kind of logo for my pots, but I thought it would look good on this little bottle, and it's just the right size, so it's going to go one on one side and one on the other. So the main thing is lining them up how you want them. And I've got warm water, scissors for cutting. If I need to, I might have to cut darts in these when I do them, but I'm just going to show the bottle right now, and then I'll do the other afterwards, as just to finish it up for myself. So I've got 2 of these. They're basically exactly alike. They're high contrast, black and white, but I also do drawings that have fine marks in them, but I put them in a photo program, and I try and get them as high contrast as possible, which changes them somewhat. And I have somewhere here, I have 2 images. Oh, I didn't bring it out. Never mind. I'm not sure where I did with it. It's probably still in my office. But there were 2 images to show you what the actual photograph looked like if it just printed black and white. And then if you put it in a photo document, it gets a little higher contrast. But you can figure that out. If you know anything about how to use a simple photo program that comes with most computers, you can change it to black and white and then tweak it a little bit with the light to bring it. What I do is I put I do the clarity button all the way over, and then I do the light and adjust it one way or the other to see what looks best. But the problem is it didn't look quite like when I printed it out. It was a little bit darker in the computer, and one of them is better than the others. The others are a little lighter than I wanted, but I'm gonna use them anyway. Um, and then because this is a COVID theme exhibit, I'm gonna kind of link them together with columns of these little COVID molecules or viruses. They're not molecules, they're viruses. Sorry about that. Got to be scientifically correct. So warm water, a few basic tools. I use a squeegee-like thing that's used for putty for fixing walls, and it bends. It's plastic. You can use the metal, but the metal will tear. It's the potter's tool that comes with most potter's kits. It can rip into them. So you got to be really careful if you use the metal. I mean, both of them can rip into them. And then a small sponge and maybe a larger sponge just to get rid of the water. So I want the sponges just damp, not wet. So this one especially because it's going to be to soak up the water. So I'm going to get rid of the water out of them right now. And part of it's to soak up the water, but part of it's to easily move the air out of it so that the air bubbles don't interfere with the decal. And there's people that are better at this than I am, but I've been doing it for a little while. So I've just dumped one of these into there, and you want to do them one at a time because you have to take time with them, and you don't want the other ones to lose all their glue. Because what it has, and it probably has something like gum arabic. You can make decals yourself with gum arabic, but I don't know that process right. I just know about it. So it doesn't take very long. If you put your pan in there and feel it and it's moving, then it's ready. And you don't want too much water. So then I line it up how I want it on the piece. And I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna have to look at it in front of me. So this one's pretty symmetrical. So I'm gonna put it, and you draw the paper out from under it. Now this is a circle, and it's not quite where I want it, so I'm gonna move it around just a little bit. Oh, it's already sticking. See, this is the problem. You're gonna wind up having it do things on you. So you want to get all the wrinkles out. So I'm kind of pulling it without pulling it too hard, and then I'm gonna go from the center and work out the wrinkles even more, and kind of just brush it with a small sponge, and make sure my circle is the most important thing in this, that it doesn't look like it's crinkled, so it looks like a good circle there. And so I'm working all the bubbles out. You don't want to do it too hard, but hard enough that it will move those wrinkles and any bubbles that are trapped in there. So that's pretty much it. And I've got one line streak there. All right, and it's moved. Now it's kind of getting. So it'll dry on there, and some people do this with, and they don't ever fire them, but we're gonna fire them. They just put them in a microwave and heat them up, and then it melts onto the surface. But this actually becomes a part of the glaze because we heat them to the glaze itself. You want a relatively light glaze so that the dark shows up, or contrasting glaze, and smooth, unless you want some effect where it interferes with the sort of like the way Arabi pottery does, where you have a design and then you splash over it. And you could do consecutive firings and add color and things like that. But if you want to use a color decal, you either can send off for your images and get color decals, or even purchase some. But I like to make my own decals out of my own images. Sometimes I get things off the internet and try to make sure they're not copyrighted. Other times, though, I just use my own images. I doctor them and then make them small enough to fit on whatever surface that I have. I mean, you could also blow up an image as opposed to shrinking an image, but usually I have to shrink the images. So then after that, after we have about two glazes that are really good because they're matte, and so I fire high at cone 6 and then low at cone 04, the same as our bisque. And so the glaze doesn't remelt, but it melts enough that the iron is burned into there. And the iron itself is a flux, so the ink has iron and probably a little bit of manganese. I'm not really sure. It's maybe not manganese because they don't want ink to be poisonous. But all metals are slightly poisonous. But iron we take as a supplement. So a little bit of iron is, you're not going to have to worry about iron quite as much as you would about something like manganese and some of the other colorants that we use as metals that we use as colorants. So that side's done, and this is Cushing's. Cushing's was from Alfred. He had a nice compendium of recipes, and it's a really good matte white for cone 6, and it looks slightly different on porcelain or porcelaneous stoneware and a regular stoneware. These are oxidation fired in electric kiln with down firing. So you can see on this one, it has a little bit of orange patina around the rim, where because of the down firing, it gives a little bit of toast, just like toasty quality, just like in reduction. The porcelain is not a pure white porcelain, but both of these work well. You could actually do it on a porcelain with just a clear glaze, and then put it on at a lower temperature, fire it, and it will fuse. So the iron will act also as a flux. So that's pretty much centered, and I'm going to do the same thing to the other side, is center a piece. I could actually add things to the sides too if I wanted to. It's a little more curved there, so it might be a little bit more, not too difficult because it's relatively flattened out from the way that I flatten the sides. But what I like to do is I add text. So I actually have, for this next project, I have some text, and I take the text and I cut it up how I want it. It's usually from my poetry. Sometimes I put whole poems on large pieces, and sometimes, and you want to make them bold. I actually needed to do this in bolder text, but it'll work. I sometimes just take parts of my poems, and then it lends a kind of mystery, and the images make it fill in the gaps. So with the meaning, and also add different meanings. So images and text together, and sometimes the images are separate from the text, and they weren't made to go together. And sometimes I just think, well, they'll work together, so I use them, and use excerpts from my own poems, and they become new poems. Instead of the whole poem, they mean something different by themselves. All right, so that's basically it. So scissors, a squeegee. I didn't really use that because I didn't need to. But if you're doing a large one, you might want to just scrape it across it to get some of the air out. But a sponge works well too, and it actually probably works better. And then if it's really wet, if you've got a large surface, then you can use a larger sponge and kind of wipe the water off the surface. You do not want to wipe the back of the decal because that's where the glue is. And I actually take the old blank paper like that to make the glue work better, and just kind of smear it on where I was doing where I'm going to put the next one. Because if for some reason the water gets the glue off of there, I at least have some glue already on there. And so the next one, and that's pretty much it. I'll do this other side, and then I'll be done. So it didn't take very long. The water gets cold after a while, so the decal may not be ready quite as soon. It's a little bit heated up water, not boiling hot, just tap water hot, and there, that one's ready. So I'm gonna line it up. I want to make sure it's about the same height as the other one. I want to place it in place where I want it, and then this time I'm going to show how you slide it down on the video. So I hold the top, you get it offset just a little bit before you do this. Hold the place that you've taken the paper off so it stays in place, and then just gently slide it. It's going to be wrinkled, so then you're going to go in and move around the piece and get out the wrinkles. You don't want to do too much of the wrinkle getting out in one place, because what will happen is all the wrinkles will be on that side. So you need to get wrinkles out a little at a time all the way around. So go opposite sides if you need to. So the round one works pretty good. I like it. It's like not quite centered like I want it, so I'm moving it a little bit. And it will stretch a little bit, so you can pull on it on the edges, and you may be able to get it to move a little bit if it's not fitting the contours. Like the rounder the piece, the harder it's going to be to put anything on there. So there we have it, and that will fire to a sepia tone. And I'll go get an example, but I'll stop for right now, just for a second, and go get an example of a finished piece. All right, so I'm recording again, and I'm back with a few pieces. And this is a more complicated one with several images, some of my poems, and I've collaged images as well. See, so I've taken several different drawings and took parts of different ones and put in there. This one was blown up, and some of the other ones were shrunk. So you have this image down here, but I've also added this image, which was from another drawing. And the same thing here, different drawings that I put in there. And sometimes cut up things and use them. Like this is several form drawings cut up. So that is actually one of the third glaze that we use. So any of the matte glazes that are relatively light, like the green matte, the blue matte, and the white satin matte, Cushing satin matte, and then also clear glaze. Any of those will work. You do not want to put them under the glaze. You could put a clear glaze over them and fire them again, but it's usually better if you do it lower. Sometimes if you do that though, you lose some of your image. It'll start melting into it. This is really high contrast. This worked a lot better than probably what this next one's gonna do, because it's not quite as dark. The printer didn't print as dark. So there you have it. Thank you, and we'll see you later.